Okay, so now we're recording, and sorry, I forgot to record right at the beginning. So really quick, I'm going to go back, I'm going to share my screen, and I will bring you up to date quickly. So I'm in Zip Forms. In Zip Forms, let me just back out here for a second. I clicked on templates on the top banner. Okay, I wanted to, let me move that. I wanted to create a new template, so I clicked on New. From New, I clicked on New Purchaser Author. I named my template Purchase Template May 2021. I clicked on Residential, and I clicked on Save. I already did that, so I'm not going to do it again, so I'll just hit Cancel. But here's my purchase template. So from here, once my computer kicks in, here, oh, there we go. I am now in my purchase template. From here, I went to All Forms, and I'll look and I'll see where I typed in RPA. And I just, the second one or the third one down here is the Residential Purchase Agreement. It's the RPACA, and that's the one I selected. There should only be one, and it might be worded California, it might be worded residential, but it's all the RPACA. Okay, so I clicked on that, and now I'm back in my template folder. So now we're going to go in and we're going to create a template. And the template is not, the only thing it's going to have is all the standard stuff in it. It's not going to have the purchase price. It's not going to have the names of the seller or buyer at this point because you don't have that information. But when we finish with the templates, putting the bones together, so to speak, we're going to go back out and then create a transaction. And when we create the transaction, we're going to pull in the template, and then we can add the price and the names and the final details to it. Okay, so clicking on the residential purchase agreement, you'll see on our checklist, there's other documents we need. And when you pull in the RPACA from Zip Forms, it will automatically add most of the other forms. So the first form is agency disclosure. And if you scroll down, we're just going to click one buyer. We don't know how many buyers we're going to have, but that'll remind us we need to check that box. If there's two buyers, we'll have to check this box. Otherwise, we'll add the buyer's name when we get it. But what we do know is your broker is Berkshire Hathaway. So we're going to click on Berkshire Hathaway, Home Services, California Properties. If you do not have anything in your drop-down menu, then go ahead and type it just like that. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services is all one word. California Properties, and you can abbreviate California with CA if you choose to, just for the sake of length. It's pretty long. When you get that typed in, our license number 02043759. Okay, you're going to put your license number on this line, whatever your license number may be, and then your name will go next to salesperson or broker associate. I don't want to go all caps. Okay. So once we've completed that, we're going to continue to scroll down. There's our fair housing form. Nothing needs to be done there. We will put in names when we create the transaction, so we're going to keep going. Here's your PRBS. Your information should automatically have populated. Wire fraud, again, we don't have the property address yet, but when we create the transaction, we will. And here we are at the RPACA. Oops. Okay. So the date prepared, we're going to leave that blank because that's the date you're going to pull in when you create the transaction. This is an offer fund. That's going to be blank because we don't have the buyer name yet. The real property to be acquired is, again, the address will pop in later. We could put the county because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be selling in Riverside County. Okay. Purchase price we do not have. Close of escrow, if you choose to, we can click this box and say 30 days. Oops. After acceptance. And if that changes when you pull in the transaction, just if they need 45 days, you can go ahead and update that to 45 days. The only thing I always say is when you're writing an offer, I want you to just be aware of the calendar. Because if you're in a time, like for example, we're going to be approaching the 4th of July, and there's usually at least 1 or 2 days off around there for the 4th of July. So if you're going to be closing escrow, or, you know, we've got Memorial Day, I think, even coming up. If you're closing escrow and it lands, or you've got a long weekend or a holiday, be aware of that because escrow is going to be closed. So I promise you, if you say 30 days, and that 30th day falls on a Monday of a holiday, for example, in your buyer's mind, they got the moving truck for that 30 days on that Monday, and they want access to the property, and they can't get it until Tuesday when it actually records. So just be aware of your dates when you're writing an offer. And then if you need to put a date, like for example, if the 30th day falls on a holiday that's a Monday, maybe just put the calendar date, for example, June 1st, which might be the next day, and that you do it right here. So I just want you to be aware of that. Confirmation. Oops, where's my mouse? There it is. Okay. Confirmation here. We don't have the selling brokerage firm yet, but we do know that you're going to be representing the buyer. So we're going to click on the buyer. And when you're doing this in final, you really want to eyeball. Agency confirmation is one of the most important things because it's confirming who's representing whom. So if it's a Berkshire listing, then you're going to check both buyer and seller. Even if you're not the agent, it's still considered dual agency because it's Berkshire to Berkshire, okay? So if it's Berkshire to Berkshire, we're checking both buyer and seller. If it's another brokerage, we'll check on they represent the seller only, you represent the buyer only. Please don't leave license numbers blank. I know sometimes we get a little lazy or tired or we're in a hurry and we say, yeah, I don't have time to look that up. The minute you go without doing this properly, you now have to incorporate another form to clean it up, and it's called agency confirmation or confirmation of agency relationships. So if this 2B is not done correctly in the purchase contract, if 2B is not done correctly in the purchase contract, the listing agent should counter with an agency confirmation to clarify this. So make sure, and if you're in multiple offers, the last thing an agent wants to say is, oh gosh, they were sloppy here. I wonder what they're going to be sloppy on in the escrow. So every detail does matter, okay? For the listing numbers, if you don't know where to find them, you can go right to the MLS. It shows their listing DRE number. I'm sorry, their DRE numbers. It shows it right there in the listing. So you can find them there. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll help you find it. So that's agency confirmation. We're going to scroll down to finance terms now, and we don't have any of the information because we don't have a real buyer yet. So we're going to keep scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. And we're going to go to page 2. And on page 2, we're going to hop over here to paragraph 5, addenda and advisories. So under addenda and advisories, and I want to point this out because I think some agents miss it or they don't really understand it. We have to, it is a RESPA violation to not disclose we have an affiliated interest in our escrow, our title, that we have a marketing service agreement with Axia Home Loans and our home warranty companies. It is a RESPA violation not to disclose that before you move forward with the transaction. So what does that mean? It means if the buyer is getting a loan, if there's lending involved, then it is a federal thing, right? Banking is federal. When it's federal, then it falls within RESPA. So we have to attach, and the reason we attach it is because then there can be no finger pointing that they never provided affiliated business. They never provided a marketing service agreement. And that, I mean, that could be like an $11,000 fine. So you don't want to mess with that. So if it's attached, it's to paragraph 5, now it becomes part of the contract, and now they can sign it. Even if they don't sign it, we can prove that we did our job in attaching it and providing it at the time of the offer. So that's why that is really important. If we're the listing side and we get an offer, we automatically should counter attaching the affiliated business and the marketing service agreement. And please understand, this is a requirement by RESPA to do this, not only when we're using our services, even if we use other services, we still have to disclose we have an ownership interest. Does that make sense? So don't think, well, we're not using them, so I don't have to do it. Oh, yes, you still do have to do it. You have to make them part of the agreement. So we're going to click addendas and advisories on other here in 5A. I'm going to attach our local area advisories. Because that's something we always do. And we can either attach the one that we can get from our Sky Slope Forms library, or CDAR has one now that you can use, or Palm Springs Board of Realtors also has one that you can use. Whichever one you want to use is fine with us. It just has to be included, okay? We also have to attach our affiliated business and our marketing service agreement. Okay, and you can abbreviate right there. We also attach the SBSA, and I know a lot of people think, oh my gosh, it's so big, I don't want to attach it. You need to attach it because it is a plethora of information. I mean, it discloses everything. And it's really important. It talks about, you know, your supplemental property taxes. It talks about HOAs. It talks about potential rental properties. I mean, it covers everything that a buyer, your buyer, should be aware of at the time they're writing an offer. So we always include the SBSA as well, okay? If it was contingent on the buyer selling a home, that you'd have to check this box at 4B. And that would also bring in the COP, the contingency of sale of property. So, but we're not going to do that on this. So at 5A, we're attaching the local area advisories. On 5B, we're using the affiliated business, our marketing service agreement. And of course, we're also including the statewide buyer and seller. If it's a trust or a probate, you know, you click over here, but we're not going to do that right now. If you are buying a home for yourself, you have to disclose on here, buyer is a licensed real estate agent. Okay, that's all you have to say. If the buyer you're representing has a license, but you're still representing them, because that often happens, you need to disclose buyer is a licensed real estate salesperson. You just have to disclose that. Okay, if you're related to any of the buyers, you must disclose that relationship. Buyer's agent is related to buyer. Then you disclose it. By not doing that, you can get yourself in trouble. Okay, moving down to paragraph 7, and probably next month, I'm thinking sometime in June, we're going to sit down and we're going to do just a purchase contract class where we're going to take it line by line, and we're going to cover each paragraph, what it means to you, what it means to your client, so you totally understand this is what we're doing in this transaction. And it just helps you understand the process more. Yes, George?
What you were just covering right now would go in 6 then?
Yes, other terms?
Okay.
Yes. Sometimes too, buyers would ask for seller to help them with closing costs, right? And that I would put up here, if I scroll back up, under additional financing terms, paragraph E, I would put seller to credit buyer 3% of purchase price toward buyer's costs. That would be the verbiage that would go there if in fact your buyer was asking for that. Probably not the right market to do that today, but we would have to, yeah, we'll have to discuss that. Again, see me if you're in multiple offers. All right, so moving down to 7, paragraph 7, inspections, reports, and certificates. We always ask the seller to provide a natural hazard zone disclosure report, including tax, and we're going to check this box, environmental. I see that environmental box missed, so you want to make sure you're clicking that box. Prepared by, you know, we just need somebody who is doing a good report, right? So we use property ID, we use my NHD. I just heard something about American Shield NHD. I have to get verification on that. But so whomever you wish to use, you can say property ID or my NHD, for example, or you can select, you know, one of the ones here. But you probably should name somebody, because what you don't want to get is that one-page report from a listing agent who doesn't know better that says natural hazard disclosure statement that they can download from zip forms. That is not the disclosure. We need a valid disclosure saying, is it in an earthquake zone? Is it in a flood zone? Is it in a fire zone? Because if it's in a fire zone, guess what? Now you need to pull in the wildfire disclosure, right? So if it is also, you know, in a flood zone, you have to, there's, you know, potentially more insurance that buyer's going to have to pay for. So, you know, they might need to get a flood certification or an elevation certification. So that's the importance of making sure you're getting a good NHD report. Okay. Seller, we normally ask seller to pay for a wood pest inspection report. Oops, gosh darn it. There we go. Wood pest inspection. Do we ask for clearance? I know some agents do. And to help you if you're confused about that, many years ago there was another form that was used. It was called a wood pest addendum, and we, as a matter of rule, we would check. We're going to want seller to do a wood pest inspection report, and if there's any active infestation, seller pays for section 1, buyer pays for section 2. And that means that if there's active infestation, that's section 1 work, seller needs to pay to remediate. Buyer pays section 2, meaning the company may look and say, oh my goodness, if you don't fix this, this could be an issue in the future. That's considered section 2 work. So we did that just as a matter of business until a time where a lawsuit was filed, because when the wood pest inspection came back, there was over $100,000 worth of repair that needed to be done. And the seller said, no, I'm not doing that. Well, as you can imagine, the sellers have no contingencies. They don't have a right to cancel. But because in the contract it said, seller, you're paying for section 1. And the seller signed because the agent said, oh yeah, this is just standard. This is what we do. The seller was now contractually obligated to do that. And that, as you can imagine, created a big problem. So it went to court. Long story short, it was decided that you cannot make a seller pay for something to which he has no idea what that amount can be. You're obligating him to something that's out of his control. So that's when they canceled the wood pest addendum form and said, no, you're now going to treat it like a repair request. So if you come back with active infestation, now on your request for repair, you'll see there's section 1 and section 2 work. You can request it there. here in the desert, most of our problem is subterranean, right? And you could probably, I mean, and it's the norm. It's nothing to be afraid of. Oh my gosh, there's subterranean termites. It's not a big deal. They go in, they drill in the cement, they remediate it, and it's fine. It could cost anywhere from $500 to $1,500 is probably, I should say, the norm. So some agents still request it, some agents don't. I 100% of the time counter it out saying seller will provide a wood pest inspection report. Remediation, if any is necessary, shall be requested on a repair request for seller's consideration. And that's how I respond to that. So that's why I don't put clearance on here, because of what has transpired in the past. And should there be any, then I'd put it on a repair request. But if you want to talk about that further, I'm happy to discuss it. Okay, sellers shall pay. There's really nothing else. I see a lot of people put buyer to pay for a home inspection report. That's not really necessary because it's already saying so in the contract on paragraph 12. We'll get to that, okay? Coming down here to 7B, government requirements and retrofits. So the law says the seller needs to make sure, the law says in each property, there needs to be a smoke alarm, carbon monoxide device, water heater has to be brazed. These are things that are health and safety issues that you have to make sure is available in the house. Who's going to pay for that, right? So normally we ask the seller, the seller, that's your house. Can you leave me with a house that's safe when I move in? However, again, if this is a multiple offer scenario and the buyer says, look, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do all this stuff anyway, I'll take care of it. You can put buyer, but normally we'll put seller. Paragraph 2 here, buyer or seller shall pay the cost of compliance with any other minimum mandatory government inspections and reports if required as a condition of closing escrow under any law. So what the heck is that? Well, it used to be in Palm Springs and Cathedral City, and I'm told that's now been changed. But you used to have to call the fire department to come in and get a smoke certification. That's considered a mandatory government inspection. As far as I know, nobody's doing that right now. So you can just leave it blank because it really is irrelevant out here. We don't have them in the, the desert area, so to speak. Buyer and seller shall pay the cost of compliance with any other mandatory government retrofit standards. So again, look at the property. Is it built in the 1940s or is it built in 2015? Chances are a home built in 2015 has been retrofitted up to code, right? But if it was a home built in the 1940s, there may be some questions. Has it been brought up to code? Is it been retrofitted to current earthquake standards, etc.? So that might be something you're going to look at and say, I need the seller to pay for this if this comes back, all right? Escrow and title, we're going to check both boxes, buyer and seller. And on this line, the verbiage is each to pay their own share. Okay. And when we write an offer in, I know we always like to say seller's choice. I'm going to put the CAR hat on when this is a binding contract. So if you say seller's choice and the seller does not counter it, you have no meeting of the minds with respect to who's doing escrow, right? I always ask for legendary escrow and landlord title, even on the buyer side. I also heartfelt ask ask for our services. Let's fight for our team. Let's make our company stronger. If you've ever had any issues and say, you know what, I don't want to use them because, come and talk to me. Let's talk to Yvonne. Let's see if it's something that can be fixed. Because, we've all had clients that thought, oh, I'm mad at you, right? Would that mean you never want to be anybody's agent again, right? So if they did anything in the past, let's get it fixed. Otherwise, let's keep pushing and keep making, because the more we use them, the more marketing and advertising dollars we have, for, you know, our offices. The more we use our competitors, the more we're lining the pockets for our competitors to advertise against us. So with that said, I put buyer and seller shall pay. Let's ask for legendary escrow. If, of course, if you know you're representing the buyer, multiple offer, and the seller says, "Here, my seller is, you know, wanting to use this, just put a name in there. Put a name in there. So, because seller's choice is really not a choice, right? Unless I think I was told there is an escrow company in LA called Seller's Choice. So you don't want to make that mistake either. Have to open an escrow out there. C2, I check the box seller shall pay for owner's title policy. And again, I will ask for Landwood title company. Okay. Going into other costs, seller shall pay for county transfer fee. We don't have a city transfer fee up here. So let's just leave that box. But let's say you're doing a contract for an area not here in the desert. You might want to check with the city beforehand, or you would check seller to pay city transfer fee, and then on this line, if any. And then that way you're covered. But normally around here, there's no city transfer tax. Okay. If it's in an HOA, seller shall pay HOA transfer fee because there may be an HOA transfer fee. And again, if any, we don't know at this point. There is on paragraph D4 that there's no choice for buyer and seller. It's a state law. Sellers shall pay HOA fees for preparing documents required to be delivered by civil code. Okay, that's in the contract. Paragraph 5, seller or buyer shall pay HOA fees for preparing all documents other than those required by civil code. Okay, if your buyer wants to see anything out of the ordinary that comes with the normal HOA docs, you know, sometimes we ask the seller to do it. Sometimes the seller will counter that, say, no, if buyer wants anything over and above what's required by law, buyer to pay for it. But, you know, oops, sorry, put that here. So we can check seller so we don't forget. Next one down, seller shall pay for any private transfer fee. Again, these are negotiable, so you got to be careful with this. Private transfer fees are very common out here. And they can range for anywhere from like $500 to, for example, Monterey Country Club, I believe, was $7,500 for the transfer fee. Some are even higher than that, $10,000 for a transfer fee. So many times when you go on a listing appointment, the seller will tell you, I am not paying those transfer fees because I paid them as a buyer. I'm not paying them again, right? Now on the MLS, you've got to say, hey, buyer, you're going to be paying these transfer fees. Talk to your buyer. You can find out what they are. This is something that's negotiable. In this case, we'll put seller, and I'm going to put if any. But read your MLS. When it should say on there if there's a transfer fee. Chances are, if it's in a country club arena, there's a transfer fee. So you just need to find out what it is, or just ask seller to pay, and then they'll either counter or they'll say, you know, gosh, it's $10,000. Seller will split it 5 and 5, and then you need to have that conversation with your buyer. Okay. On these two lines, seller or buyer shall pay for. That's extra for you if there's anything else you want to see happen. So talk to your buyer. Hey, do you want the house professionally cleaned before close of escrow? You would add that there. If it's a buyer getting like for example, an FHA loan, FHA is going to require the carbon and the smoke detectors be in and the water heater brace at the time of the appraisal. Because if it's not, the appraiser is going to have to go back and the buyer is going to have to pay for a second appraisal fee, and we don't want that representing the buyer, right? So what we want to make sure of is if it is like an FHA loan, we're going to say seller shall pay, and then on this line for carbon and smoke detectors and water heater bracing prior to appraisal. Now it's listed in the contract. So the appraiser calls the listing agent, schedules the appraiser. He goes out there, this stuff's not there. Now we call the listing agent and say, hey, this stuff wasn't in. You're going to pay for the next, the appraiser having to go back. So it saves your buyer, it helps your buyer. Okay. So think about whatever else the buyer may need, and that's what you'll put right there. Home warranty, we normally ask the seller to pay for the cost not to exceed an amount of a standard or upgraded. We'll always check the box upgraded. 1 year home warranty plan. I'm going to make a sticky note here, and to make a sticky note, I click this right up here, and I'm going to create a new note, and I'm going to say home warranty amount and provider, or actually I'll say check with buyer about. Okay, the buyer's going to be really the one using this home warranty. When he moves in, if that dishwasher breaks down, it's the buyer going to be the one having to call them and make the details, et cetera, et cetera. So I always ask the buyer, do you currently have a home warranty? Who is it with? Do you have a preference of companies? Sometimes they say we don't have one and we have no idea who to use. Give them 3 brochures, or give them at least the one from American Home Shield and Old Republic, because those are the 2, right, that we have an affiliation with, and say, here's the 2 brochures. Here's the cost. Here's what we're asking the seller to pay for. Do you have a preference? And they'll tell you, okay, we'll pick whichever one they pick. So then you want to look at the amounts. Please don't just add, well, it's probably $500, because today it's more than $500, number 1. But number 2, you want to make sure you've checked this box air conditioner. If there's a pool spa, you want to make sure you're checking that pool spa. Oh, by the way, is it a saltwater pool system? Because sometimes that's an extra fee, right? Is there a detached casita? And on many of our clubs out here, we have homes with detached casitas. That could be an extra fee. And depending on the size of the casita, if it's over a certain size, then that's a second home warranty that's needed. So when you're putting in that amount there, and the amount goes right here, I'm going to leave this sticky note on the template. You can delete that when you pull up your transactions. It's going to remind you, I need to have a conversation with my buyer about the home warranty. So you're going to select who it is, and then you're going to add whatever other coverages. Maybe it's a home that was built in the 50s or 60s and has a flat roof, or has, it hasn't been re-roofed in a while. You might want to add the limited roof coverage. That's another $125 normally to the coverage. So look at the thing before you throw an amount there, because if you don't put enough, the seller's only going to pay up to this amount, and we didn't, we don't want to look at the buyer and say, oh, we didn't put enough in on the purchase contract. So guess what? You're writing a check to escrow right now to cover the difference. Right? We've all done it, Lisa. We've all done it, going, how did I miss that? Exactly. Lessons learned. Okay, so that's the home warranty. So now let me move this a little out of the way here. Okay, paragraph 8, those are your items included and excluded from sale. It's super important you understand 8A. If you talk to any CAR attorney, when you call the legal hotline and you say, well, it said in the MLS that the refrigerator was included, or that this was included, and the seller didn't leave it. I want it. The first question that he's going to ask, or she's going to ask, is, did you ask for it in the contract? No, but it said in the MLS. So they're going to say, please look at paragraph 8A. Note to buyer and seller. Items listed as included or excluded in the MLS, flyers, or marketing materials are not included in the purchase price or excluded from the sale unless specified in 8B or C. So despite the fact they're on the MLS, you still have to request or ask them to remove if it's something they want removed. Because there's sometimes things that are in the house, they say, yeah, I don't want this, get it out. So think about that as well. And so if you're asking for things, we want the stove, right? We might want the refrigerator, all refrigerators. And if there's a washer and dryer on the premises, your buyer may want the washer and dryer. If it's otherwise furnished, please have an inventory. Please have an inventory. In most cases, the sellers should have their inventories. Their agent should have the inventory already created for you. And you can ask them to provide you a copy so you can attach it to the offer. It should be signed off by both buyer and seller. If there's no inventory, you're in for a fight at close of escrow, because inevitably something that the buyer had to have went missing. And you'd be surprised, over the smallest item monetarily wise turns into the biggest lawsuits. So you've got to be diligent. I've really, as much as we've had to deal with personal property and the problems that arise with it, it would be really great if we could just remove that from every contract. But unfortunately out here, homes are sold turnkey furnished every day of the week. It's not like this in most other areas. Most homes just are not furnished, right? People like to take their stuff with them when they move. Not here. They take their clothes and go. So this is where you would put that, the following additional items. And you can say, see attached inventory, or I want whatever items that they can fit on this line. So that's where that goes. Leased or liened items, you want to make sure if there is a, maybe the solar is leased, right? Or maybe they have a water softening system. And I've seen that a lot out there, people will have. So you will include those if those are included. But again, you're going to look as it comes. Items excluded from sale, if you know, whatever, if you don't want something, you're going to put it right there. But let's think about flat screen TVs for a moment. If there are flat screen TVs on the wall, the TV itself is personal property. Hi, Julia. The TV itself is personal property, but the bracket that attaches it to the wall is a fixture. So if you're not getting the TVs in the sale, you want to make sure you have a conversation with your buyer. Hey, buyer, are you going to be using this wall here for this flat screen TV? Because if not, you'll want to check this box. The brackets will be removed and the holes or other damage shall be repaired but not painted. Otherwise, they're going to move into a house with all these brackets over the wall, and they're going to say, well, my dresser goes there. I don't, you know, and so you want to make sure you just have that conversation. If you need to add sticky notes anywhere, you can just add sticky notes by clicking on new note right here and then moving it here. So to remind you, and that's okay too. Okay, closing and possession. If they're not intending to use it as a primary residence, check this box. That matters with respect to liquidated damages. So it's not one of those, well, it's none of their business. What kind of it is? So you want to check the box if they're not going to live there, or leave it alone if they are. As far as 9B, seller occupied possession or vacant property, possession shall be delivered to buyer. It's currently defaulting at 6 p.m. on the date of close of escrow. You do not have to type anything here. I see sometimes agents will put in noon. Please don't do that, because if it records at 2 in the afternoon, at noon, these buyers are standing there with their hands out for the keys, right? Good news is the new contract that's coming out in December, it defaults to possession upon recordation. So when the deed is recorded, they get the keys, and I'm so glad they made that change. That's a good one. But don't make this any earlier. Just let your buyer know, hey, if it closes at 9 in the morning, you get keys at 9 in the morning. But it could take until 6 o'clock at night for it to record, and that's why it's defaulted here. Okay, moving right along. If there's sellers remaining in possession, you'll check these boxes, but we won't do that right now. If there's a tenant in the property, you'll need to check that box. If they're going to stay in the property. If the tenant is going to be vacating the property, the tenant needs to be out 5 days prior to close of escrow so the buyer can do their walkthrough with it completely cleaned out. Okay, moving in, paragraph 10, that just covers all the statutory. We'll cover all that next month.
Oh, Gina? And the buyer walkthrough is it 5 or 3 days?
It's 5, and we'll get to that paragraph right here in a minute. 5 days prior to closing. They can, at any time, they can do it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We've even had them done the day of closing.
Yeah.
But, okay. So let's keep scrolling down. Condition of property, title investing, time periods. I'm only stopping here to put a bug in your ear to make you just think about this. We're seeing all kinds of shortened time periods right now. Many cash offers with a 2-week close. Please, if it's less than 30 days, if you're doing a 2-week close, even a 3-week close, do you want to give 7 and 17 days for contingency periods? No, probably not. If we're closing in 2 weeks, I want seller to give me all their disclosures within 48 hours, right? So I might change that to 2 days. And if I'm closing in 14 days, I certainly don't have 17 days to remove contingencies. You know, I might want to say 10 days, I'll remove contingencies, or, you know, whatever. But they have to make sense, because I can promise you that will come up in the transaction. You know, are contingencies removed? No, they never have to be removed. And it can be an issue. So on the buyer side, that's not necessarily bad, but it is because there can be conflicts. Okay, we want to make sure the contract is clean. Remember, access to property. The buyer shall have access to the property for 17 days after acceptance, whether or not, you know, the buyer inspection has been waived, removed, whatever. So according to the contract, buyer has 17 days. But if it closes in 14 days, then you might want to just limit that a little bit. As on the listing side, you don't have to give access after 17 days to that buyer, right? Even if they want to make an inspection. And some sellers say no. Buyer can cancel. They can say, no, I'm going to do a notice of reform and either let me in or what, or they'll have to amend this paragraph saying, no, I need, you know, 24 days or whatever it is for access. So that's just part of the contract. I want you to just have in the back of your head here. Okay, notices to perform. We're moving on. And liquidated damages, arbitration. And we're going to go down here to paragraph 31, expiration of offer. Make sure your name is on this line. Okay. Why does your name have to be there?
So they can,
Buyer's not available.
you're their dual representative, so as soon as you get the acceptance, it's good to go.
Thank you. So when you present an offer, the rule is when the offer has been accepted by the seller and delivered to the buyer, you have a ratified contract. If your name is there, by them delivering it to you, it's now in contract. If your name is not there, it's not a contract until your buyer signs off that he received it. So that's the important. So if your name is there, you as the buyer's representative also can initial confirmation of acceptance. If your name is not there, you do not have the authority to do so. Okay, so that's why that's important. Your offer defaults that it expires in 3 days. If you choose to shorten that, let's say I'm going to give you until noon tomorrow to respond to my offer, you'll check this box, put the time and the date. Of course, in today's world, you're seeing things on the MLS like seller will look at all offers on Monday the 10th at 3 p.m. You just have to tell your buyer this is what it is. They're not going to get a response in 24 hours. If you put that, then chances are your offer is expired. Can they still look at it? Technically, yes, but they can say, nope, your offer is expired or we're looking at another one. So just keep that in the back of your head. Okay, going down here, there's nothing else there except for your information. And you want to complete, you'll put your office address, 74990, Highway 111. I'm not looking for silly girl. Where am I? Indian Wells, California, 92210. Phone number, put your cell phone number, best way for an agent to reach you. Our fax number. Nobody uses faxes anymore, but some people do. It's kind of a funny statement, wasn't that? Most people don't use faxes anymore, but some still do. Just so you know, our fax machine is that copier to make an outgoing fax. Incoming faxes at this number, it's 760-777-7571. Incoming faxes come to my email. So as soon as I get a fax, it alerts me and I open it, and assuming it's not junk, because I get junk faxes every single day, then I'm forwarding it directly to the agent. Okay, so if you ever wonder, I wonder where faxes go, they come to me. So if you're expecting a fax, reach out and I'll keep my eye out for it. Of course, I look anyway and see. All right, so there's your presentation of offer section, and we are good to go. We've got buyer's inspection, we've got the California consumer. We're going to click on the save button and go back. So we've completed agency, the purchase contract, fair housing, the PRBS that we've already got. One other thing that we need to put in here, let's go get it, is our buyer representation agreement. That one. We're also going to need to include, oh, and did you notice this? When I checked SBSA, it automatically will pull the form right in, so you don't have to pull it in a second time, okay? And because we already have put information here, the information on the last page here will have already defaulted. So the only forms we're missing are our affiliated business, our marketing service agreement, and our local area advisories. So wherever you have them saved on your computer, you're just going to simply go in here and add a doc by clicking on Add Doc. Let me see if they're still in my download section from the last week. I'm going to click on Browse for Document. Downloads. And here they are. My affiliated business, my MSA, and my local area advisories. And I'm going to open it. And then I'm going to click on OK.
What are the forms called, Gina?
Affiliated business,
Okay.
marketing service agreement, and the local area advisories. So now all my purchase documents are here. But I also am going to go in and pull in the BRE. That's your buyer representation agreement. So let me go to all forms here. And in the search bar, I'm just going to type BRE. And there it is, buyer representation agreement. Now, I know some of you have never used it, and I know some of you have used it. I think now with the new laws and cooperation policies that are in place, I want you to be more aware and really try, and we're going to cover how to get someone to sign this. But basically, in a nutshell, the BRE is an exclusive agreement whereby your client signs that they're going to work with you and that they're agreeing. Let me open it up here so you can see what I'm talking about. They're agreeing to pay you a fee for representing them. However, if the listing broker pays the fee, they don't have to pay you. So what this does is it now gives you an opportunity to go look for off-market properties, knowing you're going to get paid. It could be a FSBO, it could be a pocket listing where there's no other, fee agreement. The promise for us to get paid is on the MLS, and you're seeing it range across the board. Different numbers, different amounts. So if we charge 3% and we go on and it's not on the MLS, maybe it's a for sale by owner. We contact that for sale by owner and he says, no, I'm not going to pay a commission. We can still get paid from the buyer if the buyer wants that house. Okay. So here is the form. Let me go up to the top. And again, in part 2 of this class today, we're gonna talk about how to get these, signed, and it's just your protection. So it has to be presented with agency disclosure. So here is another agency form. My question I always get is, do they have to sign too? Well, put this together, and yes, I want them to be together because I want them to understand agency is huge. Agency is everything in real estate transactions. So, and I want you to read this form so carefully that you totally understand and get it. Okay, and if you're not sure, page 2 of agency really talks about the civil code that tells you what your duties are as an agent. Okay, then there's the fair housing. The reason these forms are right here to begin with is because you are having the buyer sign this form before you start showing properties, right? So the buyer's signing all these forms, they need to be advised of all this stuff, and it goes into your file. When you are making an offer, that's when those forms come into play. Normally, you don't do them at the same time. You're going to do this particular form when you're first starting to work with the buyer. So that's fair housing. And then here's the representation agreement exclusive. So you'll put your buyer's name in there. Berkshire Hathaway beginning on would be today's date, for example. The ending date would be whatever you two have discussed, and we'll talk about that in part 2. The property to be acquired, you know, I might say any property in California, or you can say any property in the Coachella Valley, or your buyer might say, no, I'm going to only sign this for this house alone. And if that's the case, if it's you're writing an offer on one property, you can put that, you know, address right there.
The form I've used is a BRNN.
And the BRNN, the difference is there's no compensation, and it's not, the BRNN is revocable. This is irrevocable.
So I should be using this and not the BRNN?
We'll talk about that one in part 2, because there are differences. If they won't sign a BRE, a BRNN is still a good one for them to sign, because it does talk about what the buyer's duties are for inspections and what they can expect. So it's a really good form for them to understand where your roles are and what their roles are. Many times buyers will want you to do their inspections and then turn around and look at you and say, well, what did I hire you for, right? And so that buyer inspection advisory outlines, this is what you're hiring me for, and Mr. Buyer, this is what you need to still be doing. So that is a good form for that. But if we scroll down here, compensation to broker, this is one of the differences in this form is, you know, amount of compensation is negotiable. We're going to ask for 3%, right, of any acquisition price, and that's it. And then we tell the buyer, buyer's responsible for my commission. However, if anyone other than buyer compensates broker for services covered by this agreement, that amount shall be credited toward buyer's obligation to pay compensation. So let's say we do this for 3% and the listing we're selling is at 2.5. Do we have to charge the buyer the other 0.5%? No, we can waive that if you want to. It's just there so you get paid. All right. It's there. This agreement is there. And again, this particular agreement is exclusive and it is irrevocable, meaning they can't say, I'm canceling this with you. Once it's signed, it's irrevocable. All right. So they can't go out now and just start hiring other realtors to make offers on their behalf. Well, they can, but when they buy a property, you're still getting paid. So, and we don't want any ill will. So that's why we just want to be so forthright. We want to be honest. We want to be, you know, upcoming. But this, again, because of the new laws that have come down recently, we just need to make sure the buyer understands this is what we're getting on this transaction. This is what we're earning. When I'm working with you, this is good. You know, we have to just be honest and explain this is how we're getting paid. By you signing this, you're employing me to represent you. And if I get paid from someone else, that credits what you owe. If I get, and you can even have it in here, if it's 2.5%, take 2.5%, but I always try for 3, right? All right.
So at the top of the disclosure, did you mark the 1 year to represent them on
on the very top of the DRE. No, it's on disclosure regarding this real estate agency relationship.
Oh, no, that's what it comes to, leases. Right? This form is being provided in connection with the transaction for a leasehold interest
Okay.
exceeding 1 year. So on leases, if you're doing, when you're doing a lease, if it's over 1 year, and sometimes agents will put like, for example, February 1, 2021 to February 1, 2022. Guess what? That's a year and a day. That's over 1 year.
Yeah.
So if it's 1 year less, they're not required. If it's 1 year and a day or more, agency is required. I always do it as a rule because it's so important. I just never want to not do it. Okay, so that's buyer broker agreement. Now all our forms are complete. Everything is right in here. We're ready to rock and roll. So any questions on your templates? Do you have everything where they need to be? And now we're going to do a quick transaction, and I'll show you how to pull it all together.
I need to know what other forms we put in. We have the buyer one and the one we worked on. Okay. Statewide
Okay,
buyer.
so here's all our forms, the RPA, the
Okay.
SBSA, and when we check the box, it automatically pulled it into your folder. This is the affiliated business that I added, the local area advisory that I added, the marketing service agreement that I added, and then here's your buyer representation agreement.
How did you get to this page?
This is my templates page, and I'm working in my templates,
Okay.
okay?
where
So
do you-
if I go, let me just click out for a second. Let's say I've just logged into Zip Forms right now.
Okay.
I want to go over to see what I have in my templates. Here's my purchase template I did today, May 2021.
Right.
And as soon as it lets me, I'm going to open it. And here's all my forms.
Okay. I only have 2 forms in mine. How do I get the others in there?
You'll be able to go back and watch the video, but you should save the affiliated business, the marketing service agreement, and the local area advisories. Save them somewhere. If you probably have them already on your computer saved from our listing class last week. If you don't, all 3 of them can be found in SkySlope under our office documents. If you have a challenge finding them, let me know after the meeting, and then I'll get them over to you.
Okay.
But I have folders saved on my computer called listing and folders called purchase. And I save them in there. So if I need to ever pull them out quickly, and sometimes you have internet, sometimes you're in a place where you don't. So I just want to have access to them immediately. So I save them separately. So wherever you've got them saved, it could be in your downloads file. Just from there, you're going to go back up here to add a document, and then you'll pull them in from wherever folder you've saved them.
Those will be saved. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, those will be put into this template?
They're going to be put into this template. So whenever you use this template, they're already there. Okay?
Gina, what do you think of that Glide app that we're seeing in our mail all the time about making an offer on the fly using that Glide app?
Okay. We're going to talk about Glide briefly, very briefly. They were just purchased by Compass. So Compass is a brokerage.
Right.
They have said they will keep all our clients' information confidential. It is a choice that you will have as an agent. Do you want to do that in your business? I am researching another app. There's another app on Zip Forms that does very similar to Glide, and I will be getting that information out so you have options. Right now, let's just get our templates together, and then we'll focus on moving forward. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go now to my transactions. I've got my buyer. I've showed the properties. The buyers have said, okay, this is the one I want to write an offer on. And we come back, we're excited. We come back to our forms here. And now we're going to log into Zip Forms. We're gonna click right here on transactions. And we're gonna create right here a new transaction. Okay, this is a new purchase. So I'm gonna click on new purchase. And the name will be Great Client 1234 Main Street, whatever address you want, whatever your client. I always do it by client and address because you're going to represent a client more than once. If you know they like you, you're the person they're going to keep coming to. So I like to say I want the client's name, so when I sort them, I can see, and it's on this particular property address. Okay. On MLS Connect, I love MLS Connect, and I want to show you this. And somebody have an MLS number handy? Actually, I've got one right here. Never mind. I'm going to pull an MLS number because I want to show you how it works.
What was it there?
Yes.
Very cool.
Look at our new listings. I'm so excited.
I love it. Oh my God. It's so.
Oops. Come on. Come back. Come back.
I have one, Gina.
I've got, well,
You
okay.
got it?
Let me look here. Oh, it's making me log in. Let me log in. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Okay, yeah, so when I click right here on MLS Connect, if the property is on the MLS, obviously it's not going to work if it's not, all right? You're going to check your MLS name, and we are GPS. If you're part of CDAR, you are GPS, okay? And then our MLS ID, the listing number is, come on, make this big, I can't see you. Office listings, let me just find one here. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna. Oops. There, come on, make it so I can see you. There we go. 2190. So let me try this one. And it's a new listing that just hit the market. 21906119, for example. And if I want the property photo included, I'm going to click on include property photo. And then I'm going to click on find. Find your way here. And the cool thing about this is it pulls in all the property information. So there's the house. Here's the address. Compliments of one of our agents in the office. So thank you very much. And I'm going to click on use listing. Okay. If the property is not on the MLS, you're doing an off-market offer, then obviously you're going to have to go in and type all this information in. But by using MLS Connect, it will pull in the information for you so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So it's a residential. Yeah, I'm showing you how to pull in the template, and this will take you less than 10 minutes to write an offer now, once your templates are done. So we've named it. Let me just make.
On my templates from here, where do I go to?
So right here where it says select template, you're going to hit this drop down.
Cool.
And here's the personal purchase template, May 2021 is the one we did today. And then we hit save. And it is now creating a transaction and has pulled in your templates. Instead of having to go in there and redo everything, it's just done for you.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Canvas is very cool.
I know, can you kind of show me?
Of course.
Where I'm at? Cause see, I'm here on the templates and I have like the RPA, the statewide. I just need that visual to go from here to where you pulled it in. Just because I walked away. You're gonna go into transactions, so here in your templates, just go over to transactions now. You're gonna create it.
Yeah, go to transactions. And now you're gonna click on new. And new purchase. And you're gonna name it. And then you'll use the MLS to connect to do an MLS number. I used one of our office listings and I'll read it out to you to do that.
Sorry.
No, don't be.
I had to go back.
That's why you're here, so you can get hands-on help. Okay, so the listing number that I used was 2190-61619. Okay, you can use any listing. It doesn't. We're just doing it for fun. We'll go in and delete this when we're done. Okay, are we all good?
Yep.
We good? Oh, it's okay. We can give you a second.
319.
I did 2190-61619.
I use an actual one, is that okay? Or is there gonna be information pertinent to this one that I need?
No, go whatever one you want. It's fine. Yeah, if you're writing an offer, this is perfect because you're ready to rock and roll.
Right, exactly.
It's better if you put it in the MLS and do all that beforehand, that way
Populates
it
everything.
populates everything before you send it to your friend.
Well, on an offer, you know, when you're writing an offer, you're taking it from the MLS. When you're taking a listing, it's not in the MLS yet, so
Yeah.
then you're creating it all.
Oh, see your MLS, that's why.
Oh yeah, pick GPS.
That's why it's doing that.
If you, I did have a question about that, Gina.
Uh-huh.
So that GPS, is that just this area?
No, it pulls in from everything. It's just what MLS it's on.
Sorry, just
Okay.
did that.
Even if
Like the log.
it's 2190-61619. Yeah.
The login is what it affects, whichever one of those two you choose, right?
Well, it's,
GPS.
Well, if you're a member of CRMLS, you would select the CRMLS.
Oh,
If
got it.
you're a member of Greater Palm Springs MLS, you're gonna pick the Greater Palm Springs MLS.
active. And then we're gonna go down to template,
Uh-huh, and select your May 2021 templates.
purchase. Got it.
And it'll leave the original one alone, this is creating a new one.
Exactly, so your templates are intact now,
Perfect.
and you can go back in there and, you know, pull them out, whatever you need. Okay, so once we've got that hit save, you go into your transaction here, and it opens you up in the summary page. We want to work in the document section, so I'm going to go over here. If you see the third one in documents, I'm going to click on documents. And you'll see, here's all our templates that we put in to our forms. I'm going to open the purchase agreement because now we just have a few things to fill in, right? So here's our agency disclosure. We'll scroll down a little bit. Now we know our buyer's name because we're ready to write an offer, right? So my buyer's name is Bob Buyer.
I have a question. So it's not like the other templates where you go in and you have like the summary page where you put it in and then it automatically populates on each page. The
You
name?
can certainly do that, but we've already done it. I mean, it talks to each other. So if you prefer to do the summary page with everybody's name first and then go check your contracts, you can do it that way. I'm all about getting rid of as many steps as I can.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna go through line by line of my contracts anyway to make sure they're right. So I'm gonna add the name, but as soon as I add the name here, it's gonna auto-populate in the summary.
Okay,
Whatever I do in the summary, it's gonna auto-populate here. So
okay.
it's your preference, whichever you prefer. Okay?
What about-
I'm sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna ask, what about the date stuff? Cause I know.
I'm glad you brought that up. So dates must be done in the client's own handwriting if it's a wet signature, or it will date it automatically if you sign it electronically.
Okay,
Okay? We never put in the dates next to a signature. Now, the dates you'll see at the top of the page, yes, you want to put those dates in on the date you prepare the documents. But anytime anything is signed, it must be done by the client on the day they're actually signing it. We never want to say, oh, we forgot this, can you? No, that's bad. No backdating, none of that. They sign it, they date it the day they actually did it, okay? Yes.
If you start a purchase contract
Mhm.
and you need to date it to start filling it out, can you go in and change that date
Absolutely. You can
Okay,
change
all right.
anything, anytime.
until it's sent?
Exactly.
Okay. thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. You know, if Bob had a spouse, I would put Bob's spouse here, but let's just, for sake of ease of this class, we're gonna have one buyer. So there's Bob's information, there's your information. We're gonna continue to scroll down because we're gonna just eyeball now and see what's necessary. So there's fair housing, there's Bob, and you know what? I need a seller's name, right? Because this is an offer. Where would I have gotten the seller's name from?
Well, it populated, so mine.
The property
Actually,
profile.
Property profile, yeah. Populated from where?
From the actual numbers, the MLS numbers.
Oh, okay. Well, it wasn't in this MLS number that I used, I guess. So, because it did not populate. So I'm just gonna say Sam Seller. You want to make sure you're adding the names of the parties. And, you know, I know it sounds like a detail, but I got to tell you, the details are important in this business, guys. They're very important. You want to make sure everything's accurate, it's right. The number of sellers I've heard complain saying they didn't even have my name on there. And you want to say, well, it's because they probably didn't know your name at the time they put together the paperwork. In some people's minds, there's no excuse for that, because why didn't you do your homework? Why didn't you get the documents? Why didn't you look at the real list or the property profile? There's ways of getting it. So make sure that you're paying attention to those details. If you're not a detail person, have somebody just eyeball it for you. You know, call me. That's what you pay me for. I want to make sure that you're doing it right. So never think twice. Send a purchase contract to me, email it to me and say, Gina, can you eyeball this? I'll eyeball it. I'll tell you what my thoughts are, and then you can take it from there. Okay. All right. So moving right down here, PRBS. Here's Sam Seller, Bob Buyer, and then, oh, it's DeVern. Hi, DeVern. Here are the buyer and selling agents. Okay. Moving forward here, we have our wire fraud. As you can see, the address is automatically populated. There's Bob and Sam. Now we get to the purchase contract. So the only thing we have to add now in the purchase contract is the date prepared, which is today. Right? This is the purchase price. How much does Bob want to offer? I didn't notice the price of the home, but let's just say 400,000, right? Is the offer. If the buyer is good with 30 days, we'll just leave it there. Okay. Now you notice it's a Berkshire to Berkshire in this particular scenario. So I'm going to say both buyer and seller, and I need to, and see how it changed. I needed to make sure it changed both buyer and seller for both under agency confirmation. Okay.
I'm sorry, Gina, can you repeat that?
On agency confirmation, remember I had that we represented the buyer only on the template. But because it's a Berkshire listing and you're a Berkshire buyer's agent, it's now both buyer and seller. So I checked both buyer and seller, and all the boxes went to buyer and seller. Okay? Because it is considered dual agency in this scenario. All right? Scrolling down, let's talk about finance. If it was, or initial deposit, I mean. So initial deposits historically are 1 to 3% of the sale price. 3% is a strong offer. 1% most likely is asking for a counter offer. So talk to your buyer at a $400,000 purchase price. My initial deposit that I'm going to tell the buyer, you know, once our offer is accepted within 3 days, you will need to wire $12,000 into escrow. Are you prepared to do that? Yes. Great. Now we can move forward. So that conversation is had. Do not check or type anything else here. Everything is already defaulted. So the buyer shall deliver directly to escrow by electronic funds transfer $12,000 within 3 business days after acceptance. Okay? Let's move on down. If the buyer is getting a loan, or let's start here. If the buyer's paying all cash, I would check all cash. If the buyer's getting a loan, we're going to put that loan amount here. We need to have that conversation with the buyer's lender. Hey, good to meet you, Mr. Buyer Lender. You and I are going to be working very closely together over the next 30 days. Just want to confirm we're writing an offer. They're pre-approved for a loan. I need you to send me that approval letter so I can attach it to our offer. How much is the buyer financing? He's going to say, or she's going to say, well, they're only financing $200,000. Great. So we're going to put $200,000, whatever amount they're financing is here. And Mr. Lenderman or Mr. Lender Person, is it conventional, FHA, or VA? Well, it's conventional. Okay, great. We don't have to check any boxes because that's the default. But we do need to know how much is that loan? What is the interest rate on that loan? Right? Because let's say, what we're saying here is the loan shall be at a fixed rate not to exceed. So right now we're in the mid 3s. I might put 3.5%, but we need to have an amount there. Don't say, well, I don't know what it is, so I left it blank. Because what this means, remember, financing is a contingency of this agreement. And if they can't get financing, that is a way for the buyer to be able to cancel safely and get his deposit back. So let's say we put 3.5% and interest rates shoot up to 4%. That difference in the interest rate makes a difference on their monthly payment. And that may make it so it's more than what that buyer feels comfortable with. So the buyer can now safely say, you know what, my payments are way too high right now. I need to just stop. I need to back out. I need to cancel. Okay, now we can move forward and his money is protected. But if we leave that blank, we've just committed the buyer to get any interest rate he can. So that's really important, all right? So 200,000, 3.5%. As we scroll down, you see right here, it automatically populates the balance that needs to be brought to escrow before closing.
You don't have to do the math.
No, there's no math. There's no math. Good news, no math. Yeah, we don't. I guess CAR doesn't want to trust realtors with calculating. I know.
No kidding.
So now, Mr. Or Mrs. Lender or Lender, I need your pre-approval letter for this. Hey, buyer, I need proof of funds for this amount, right? Because you're bringing $188,000. We just need to show the seller you've got that $188,000 to close escrow. Where's it coming from? So you'll get that as well. Moving down here, remember, this is our template, so everything's already done. No home to sell. Here's our terms. We're just going to pick an NHD provider. We're going to scroll down here. That's all done. Ooh, home warranty. Hey, buyer, who do you want for home warranty? Well, I think this time I want to use American Home Shield. Great. I'm going to delete my little sticky note. I'm going to delete it. Yes. I'm going to click on and I've already done my homework. I've opened up the thing and it's going to need $750 for the home warranty, for example. My home warranty provider, let's do American Home Shield here. Yes, sir, ma'am.
And we discerned that 750 by calling Karen or whoever.
I discerned that from pulling their brochures in our back area that has all the brochures. I pulled one from Old Republic. I pulled one from American Home Shield. I gave them to my buyer and said, who do you prefer? They told me, I looked and said, what does this house need covered? It needs a pool, it needs a saltwater system, it needs the roof, it needs a casita, and I'm calculating all these, and it's probably gonna be more than 750, I just threw that number out there, but that's the number you put there, okay?
Well, for instance, like the one that she's doing, is that gonna be like?
How big, what's the square footage of the house that you're working on?
4,700.
It should
with
be
the
in the
casita.
standard, but what, is it detached?
Yes.
And how big is the casita, do you know what that is?
560.
It should be
square foot.
okay. Usually if it's in the 500 zone, it's included. If it's bigger than 500 square feet, it's not included. But because of the size of that house, I do recommend you call the rep and say, I'm making an offer. Here's what it has. What do I need? And just make sure, talk about the pool, talk about, you know, the casita, talk about the various things, just to make sure you have that number calculated correctly. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we've added the home warranty. We're gonna scroll down now. We've got the inventory list, so we might say, see attached inventory list. Hey there, how are you, Rolando? Okay, we're gonna scroll down now. And you can see within a matter of minutes, we just added the price, we added the finance terms. Everything else is done for you. The only thing you really need to think about is if this is a 30-day escrow, okay, we're good to go. If not, then we need to make those adjustments as well. But everything is done. Yes.
With respect to the length of escrow, if it's a cash deal that's not on Indian land, that comes up in the pre-negotiation for the price. I mean, that's part of the offer, a 10-day close or a 30-day close.
Wait, yeah, on page 1 at the very top, it says close of escrow to be. Let's go back up there so you can see it.
Is there a standard base for?
Whatever the buyer and seller want.
Okay.
And what
On
if it-
average, they like 30 days because it gives them time to pack, it gives them time to do the stuff. You know, be mentally prepared, because I don't care if you're buying or selling, it's an emotional drain. I mean, buying or selling a house is a lot of work for everybody, but they're packing, they're moving. Who do I need to call? I need to call movers, I need to call the electricity, I need to call, you know, there's a lot of things that are going on for everybody. Listing agent, buyer, seller. So sometimes they need this 30-day period to go, I just need it. Other buyers are like, look, this is not going to be my primary residence. Here's my cash. When can we close? Right? So it just depends on who your clients are, but it's all worked out at the beginning. And on page 1 of the offer, we're going to go back right here. 1C or 1D, I mean, close of escrow shall occur on. If you want it on a certain date, Jean, you would check this box and put it right here. Otherwise, you'll just leave it at 30 days after acceptance. If it's a loan, please have a conversation with the lender before you submit this offer, because sometimes it may take that lender 45 days to get that loan through, right? Sometimes with FHA or VA, it may take some extra time. Sometimes the buyer's going to say, you know, I can't move for 60 days. Okay, then let's put 60 days in here. So it's whatever the client's need is, then we're gonna put that in the offer, and then the seller may say, you know what? My sellers need to be here until the fall. Can they do a lease back? You know, and that can be negotiated in. Everything is negotiable, but you just have to have.
Once that date is in, they can't change their mind. Either they're gonna need an additional 30 days, see if it's 30 days, and then.
You can always, as long as all parties agree. So we have a 30-day escrow. The seller agrees to it. We have a ratified contract. Now we open escrow, and the buyer comes back and says, "Oh my goodness, I need another, 2 weeks because of whatever scenario."
Somebody did that to me.
Whatever it happens, it happens. So now it's a conversation between the buyer's agent and the listing agent saying, hey, you know what, my buyer's gonna need a couple extra weeks. Is the seller agreeable to this? And if so, then you do the amendment to existing agreement. You have the buyer and seller sign it with the new close of escrow date, and you move forward. But everything's always negotiable as long as all parties agree to it.
Self-employed, you make sure you.
So, yeah, because
takes
on loans, it takes longer for them to prove up,
Oh, wow.
The problem with a lot of the self-employed finance issues, I mean, they have to show their 2 years of them being self-employed, that the problem is on some people, you know, they want to show on their taxes that they're not making any money. But then they need to show their lender that they're making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that can be a real problem. That can be a real problem. So their numbers have to match, the taxes and their books, everything has to match so that when they send it to the lender's gonna say yes or no. So we just have to ask a lot of questions. Communication in this business,
It's huge.
it's 100% everything in this business. If you're not communicating with everybody, I say, our realtors, you guys are, you're like conductors, you know, orchestra leaders standing up there, and there's the whole orchestra is your escrow, your title, your buyer, your seller, all the termite inspector, the home inspection. These are all the people in the band, and you're standing in front of them saying, your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn. And that's really how you look at an escrow, and you want to maintain control of that escrow. You need to be on top of those dates. You need to know exactly what's going on and when at all times, so that you have answers you can give to your client. And you want to make sure you're calling your client daily sometimes, especially if there's a loan involved. Just checking in. How you doing? Where, you know, what do you need to know now? We've got our inspections. We've got our termite. Here's where we are. Keep everybody in the loop. The more you communicate, the more your client will just love and respect you, because they need that. They need that handholding.
Gina, if the sellers extend their time in the home, do we have to do anything with the insurance?
The SIP, if it's less than 30 days, you'll also include, in fact, let me go to that paragraph here. The question for you on Zoom, if you didn't hear it, if the seller extends time in the home, do we need to do anything with insurance? And that's an excellent question. I do get that question all the time. So I'm going to come down here to, it's paragraph 9C. And you'll see seller remaining in possession after close of escrow, right? Seller has the right to remain in possession. If it's less than 30 days, you're going to do an SIP, stands for seller in possession. If it's more than 30 days, you need to do an RLAS, that's a residential lease after sale. Okay. Every scenario is covered in the purchase agreement, which is why next month we're going to review it again. And I always review it at least once a year in full detail, because I got to tell you, even the most seasoned agents, you know, we get so used to electronic signatures. We have our templates set up, we get them done, we blast them off to our client signs them, we get them submitted. When was the last time, and don't raise your hand or don't answer this, but literally, when was the last time you read that contract? So, and imagine an agent who's been doing this 5, 10, 15, 20 years. If they've not read that contract recently, they need to, because you forget. And some agents have forgotten more than some agents will ever know, right? But you forget, there's a lot of details in this thing. So once a year, I will sit down, minimum once a year, and go through it line by line, just to refresh and to stay on top of my game, because it's so important, so important. Okay, did that answer your question, Jean?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
Actually, just along those lines, so those forms are going to pull up from forms and attach to this for a seller lease back, correct?
Yes, if it's on the MLS and it says seller wants to lease back, again, if it's less than 30 days, you'll do the SIP.
Okay.
And actually, you'll just check this box, and Zip Forms will pull it right in for you. If it's more than 30 days, you're doing the RLAS, you check this box, Zip Forms will pull it in for you.
Perfect.
Okay, and that does address the insurance, who's responsible for what, you know, but because it's hugely important. Please don't ever let the seller remain. Even sometimes you'll see they need 3 days after closing to move. That's an SIP.
Mm-hmm.
They do not stay 1 second past recording without an SIP or an RLAS. The reason, if they were to trip and fall on that property after closing, who's responsible? The new owner. They just tripped and fell on their property, and guess who can get sued? And because you let them stay there, guess who the buyer's going to sue? Right? So these documents are critical. Who's responsible for what? So yeah, just remember that. Okay, so if there's no more questions on the contract, I'm going to go back let me stop sharing my screen for a minute. Hello there. And I'm going to stop recording. I'm just going to pause it for now. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Let me share my screen. And now we're going to talk about the buyer experience. We're taking you from now your phone rings, you know, you've done whatever you need to do. Let me start my slideshow here. There we go. Okay, so of course, you know, we all have an ideal candidate in mind, right? The perfect buyer. And when you're thinking about your business, always think about your perfect business. Please don't think about what can go wrong. Focus, your mind goes to what you focus on, right? You attract what you focus on. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I only attract blah, 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 guess what you're going to keep getting? You're going to keep getting blah, blah, blah. So our focus is we are looking for buyers who follow our guidance, you know, take our direction. We're giving them the best advice for them. Shows up to all the appointments, provides all information to the lender, and calls you back. And guess what? They expect that from you too. Please return your phone calls. So we're doing it, what I want you to think about, and we're doing it this way because you know how fickle buyers are, right? They will, I mean, and they don't know is the thing. And sometimes they think if they have multiple people working on a project, they're going to get their result faster, which, you know, it's not necessarily true. So what we want to do is we want to stand out. You know, they have one doctor, they have one CPA, they have one lawyer. They need to have one realtor that's going to do what they need them to do, that's going to answer their questions, that's going to know the market, that's going to be professional. You're going to be the real estate influencer, like Chris Stewart's book. If you haven't gotten that yet, I strongly encourage it because it's an excellent book that will help you. But you want to be the person who's known to be the professional, that whether or not they're buying or selling today, they know they can feel comfortable coming to you and asking their questions and getting the results without having to worry about anything, right? So there's 4 sections. What Berkshire Hathaway has done, hi Brer, what Berkshire Hathaway has done is put together a buyer presentation, similar to a listing presentation. Why? Because when you are talking to your buyer and you're selling yourself, how are we going to ask them to sign a buyer representation agreement when they don't even know who we are or what we think or what we're going to do, right? They're going to look at us and say, absolutely, I'm not signing that thing with you. I don't even know you. I don't know if I want to work with you yet. So what this process will do is have you stand out from all other realtors. And by the end of this, they're going to sign that buyer representation agreement without even thinking about it, because now you've proven, here's who I am, here's how I work, here's why you and I are going to work one-on-one together. And so it's going to create that buyer loyalty, and it's going to make your business better. Okay. So there's 4 sections, and I'm going to show you the home finding guide is also available to you on the VAC. I'm also going to email it out to you after the class, and I'm going to go through the PowerPoint with you here so you know how to present it to your client. But it's in 4 sections. And the first section is your needs come first section. It's going to help you discover the buyer's needs and begin building a solid working relationship. In the home finding process section, you're going to use the information and worksheets to precondition the buyers for what to expect as they search for and purchase a home. The third is the financing your home purchase. That section focuses on the process of obtaining a loan, because, you know, there's a lot of people out there, they have no idea. This is so overwhelming for them. They don't know what to do. They don't even know where to go. A lot of times, and I hear this all the time, well, they don't think they have good enough credit, so they're just not doing anything. Well, have you hooked them up with a lender? No, they're not ready. They don't have good enough credit. Oh my God, now's the time they need to be hooked up with a lender so they can get guidance on the right steps to take to raise their score. Some agents or some buyers, they think, well, if I cancel all these credit cards, that's a good thing. I won't have this debt. No, my gosh, then you have no credit. So please, if you have a buyer who's thinking about it and they will be financing a portion of that investment, get them with a lender today, even if they're not buying for a year. So now they know, here's what I'm going to need. Here's how my ducks need to be in a row. And now they have that goal of working toward that versus flying by the seat of their pants. They'll never be ready. In the who we are section, that's where you can tell the buyers more about yourself, your company, Berkshire, and the services you provide. So when should you use this home finding guide? It is flexible. It can be used and customized for home buyers. So you'll be able to put their name on it, your name, your branding information, etc. And it can be used one of three ways. Either as a visual aid, like you're at a listing presentation, like you would go through our listing presentation now page by page, you would be able to go through this buyer presentation with them page by page. Or you can save it as a PDF and email it to them, or you can actually print it and put it in a nice, either linen cover or another binder and give it to them as a buyer presentation when, you're meeting the buyer. So first and foremost, you're not going to have this conversation with anybody unless you're getting yourself out there to get your buyers, right? So where's your business going to come from? And it's going to come from anywhere. I always say that name badge, it's a $56,000 a year name badge. And the reason I say that is that's about the amount of commissions you can earn by people going, oh, you're in real estate. How's the market, right? And they're going to ask you that, but you have to have that badge on. You have to be your walking billboard. You are the brand for you. You're selling you. So you need to make sure everybody understands you're in business. You're going to market, you're going to advertise, whether it be your neighborhood reports, you're going to do your AdWords videos, your postcards. You want to promote you. If you have no listings, maybe consider taking an ad out, and you can do it in various ways. Maybe if you're farming a certain area or a city, selling in Indian Wells, or I represent properties from X to over whatever million. You can promote it. If I love the Indian Wells, and if you need help with any of the country club developments, there's Toscana, there's Vintage, there's El Dorado. You can just go through and list. Contact me if you're interested in any of these developments. There's a way you can promote you so that your phone rings and now you're getting clients, okay? But you need to have that top of mind. What am I doing today to get my name out there? You should have a goal of a minimum talking to 10 people every single day, minimum. I know you talk to a lot more than 10 people a day, but that's why you're so successful, right? The more people you talk to, the better your numbers are. So minimum 10 people a day. Now I'm not talking just any conversations. You want to have good, meaningful, quality conversations with people. And you know what? And always promote. Have you heard? Of anybody who's thinking about buying or selling? I hope you feel comfortable introducing them to me. Put that out there, because the more you do, the more referrals. Because people are not thinking about referring business to you, right? They're only thinking about what's going on in their life, and that's okay. We're all like that. So marketing and advertising, you need to become top of mind. Open houses pretty soon, kids. I think by June we're going to be reopened up, and we'll be able to do some more open houses. So really make sure that's 1 month away. So start making sure, do you have your signs? Do you have, your marketing materials? What are you going to do? You've got a month to get ready for it, because I think when they say, okay, open houses are allowed, imagine that first weekend, what a blowout it's going to be. Are you going to be the agent getting those buyers and sellers, or are you going to sit home going, wow, I really should have been out there this weekend, shouldn't I? Right? So that it's your business. You got to think about that. Lead generating activities. What are you doing to generate leads? Are you asking for referrals? Community events. That's a huge way of meeting new people and getting new business. Buyer seminars. I know agents who have put on buyer seminars. They pull in a lender, they pull in home inspectors, they pull in like termite inspectors. They have a group of people, and they discuss the whole buying process with the buyers. And it's really profitable to do that. Your sphere of influence is number one. They're already liking you. They're your biggest fans. So you want to be able to reach out to them. So that's just some. I can stand here and list hundreds of resources where you can go find buyers. My answer is, it's not in your living room. You need to go, get out, and meet people. And that's what you need to do. So your lead generating activities, Number one is your VAC. That I think that's worth millions of dollars to you. I want you to realize the value of that VAC. You want to make sure you get everybody into your CRM and get them on their drip systems. To be top of mind, they have to see your name over and over and over and over and over. So send those monthly newsletters, send the holiday cards, send the buyer prospecting campaign. When you put a potential buyer into that CRM, if you don't know what that buyer prospect campaign is, go in and check it out. It will send the buyer an email right after you've met them and you put them in saying, I am so happy to have met you. Here's what you can expect. In a couple of days, it's going to send an email to you saying, you need to follow up with your buyer. And now you can call them and say, hey, just reaching out, making sure you got my email that I sent to you. Because if you start sending emails and they're not getting them, it doesn't help, right? So you want to make sure that they opened it, because then it won't go into their spam. Send all prospects directly to your website. Get them off of Zillow. Get them off of these other sites out there that send them to other agents. Just tell them, I want you to go to whatever your website's name is. Every agent has a website with Berkshire Hathaway. It is normally their first name, last name, .bhhscaproperties.com. Unless you have your own personal URL. And if so, then we can point that website directly to your personal URL, and it'll take you to our fully functional website. Our website is superb. It is super easy to use. Clients can just click in the address or city or area, and all the listings come up. It's very interactive. Don't promote other websites, promote yours. The more people click on your website, the higher you will be in the search engines, right? So you want to drive as many people as you can to your website, or send them the Mobility RE app. That's right there on their mobile phone. And so that way you'll know exactly what they are looking for. If they have questions, I have a question, and it goes right to you. So it really helps in the communication aspect of it. And of course, market yourself and available listings. If we have listings in this office that last more than a day, it's always good to reach out to the listing agent and say, do you mind if I share this listing? Promote it. You can attract those buyers too. I know we have a couple of listings in this office. Our agents would be thrilled if you would share and market, because they're on a very short timetable to sell these things, and they want to make sure that it's getting out there. So, never hesitate to do that. Let's get them out there and get them sold. Understand your agency relationships. Again, agency is huge. One thing, when does agency start and when does agency end is a big one. So it starts on the day, right, that you have that first relevant real estate conversation, and you have them sign agency disclosure, right? And you have to have them before you have a relevant conversation about real estate. The law says you must first disclose agency relationships to the buyer. So that agency form should come first no matter what. When does agency end? Any guess? It ends at close of escrow. Upon recording of the grant deed, agency is now over. So now maybe the seller says, hey, I want you to do this. Or maybe they haven't cleaned out the house, and now you think, well, I'll take it upon myself to do that for them because you're being nice. You no longer have agency. You no longer are covered with E&O. That ended at close of escrow. So unless you're in another transaction and you have another agency relationship contract with disclosure with the buyer or seller. So make sure you understand those dates. Local market information. Know your market. You guys, I can't tell you how important that is. They're looking to you as the expert. Do you know how many listings were new on the market today? Do you know what the average price point is in your area, right? Do you know how long they're on the market? So if a potential seller, for example, comes to you and says, well, if I list my home, how soon do you think it'll sell? I hope that you know these numbers, because it's okay to say, you know what, let me get you some information, I'll send it to you. You might be able to get away with that once or twice, but really they want answers. And if you say, well, let me look on the MLS, I'll see what's available, you just lost. They do that. They're on the MLS every day. They're on Zillow, they're on Trulia, they're on all these websites. So if that is your answer, they don't need you. And they know that. They're going to politely say, oh, thank you, that's really nice. And they're going to walk away and call somebody else because they don't need you. You've not shown value. So if they do come to you and say, so what's going on in, Indian Wells? You need to be able to rattle off. There's currently, 116 active listings. The median price right now is about $1,050,000. It on average of what is sold. They're on the market for about 30 days total from listing to close. So, whatever it is, you want to be able to have these numbers and talk about them. So do your homework, go onto the MLS and know what's going on. If you need help with that, because some of us are not number people, and that's okay. If you need help with that, let's schedule a time together. I'll show you some very simple ways to get that information, whether it be pulling a trends off of the MLS, whether looking at some of these other reports. Just looking at our own market reports in the VAC will really help you as well. So HOAs, what do they cover, right? How many of our developments out here have HOAs? A ton of them. So get warm and fuzzy with what do the normal HOAs have and what do they cover. Don't let them scare you. I hear so many people say, oh my God, look at the HOA, it's $500. And they freak out about it. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, mindset, people. If you don't believe in it, how are you going to sell it, right? So figure out, what do they cover? Well, they cover the gardening, they cover the, the landscaping, they cover the pool maintenance, they cover the front and backyard, they cover the painting, they cover the roof, they cover, whatever it is, they cover the trash, they cover the cable sometimes. Whatever that HOA covers, here's how I look at it. If you buy a home, you have to buy or pay for, most people do, the gardener, the pool guy, the trash you have to pay for, the cable you have to pay for. So you're either going to write 4 or 5 checks here, or you're going to write 1 check here, right? So on for the most part. So just get comfortable, understand, and if you're not good at selling that, figure out how can I get good at doing this? How can I communicate this to the buyer so as, to make it make sense, so to speak. Country clubs. I recommend you call the membership directors at all the clubs in the area. Just give them a call. I'm a realtor. I am looking for information that I can provide to potential buyers. Sometimes, if they're open to it, you can go meet them and they'll give you a tour of the facility. Other times they'll email you the documents, but now you have what the membership dues are, what the golf memberships cost. You've got information about the clubs, the social memberships, what the whole club is all about, the restaurants. So that information you should have with all of our clubs around here, okay? So when somebody calls you and says, yeah, I'm thinking about moving to PGA West, what can you tell me about that? Now you can stand up and go, all this. Oh yeah, PGA is a great place. Here's what you can get. Here's what a golf membership costs. Here's what this is. Here's what this is. I've got that information. Would you like me to send it to you? Now you're the person, you're the go-to person that has the information. Does that make sense? Okay. And so you just want to be the one person that they know, if I call this person, I'm going to get an answer. Oops. All right. So have your buyer presentation packet ready to go. Just like your listing presentation that I showed you, I've got that beautiful black box. Guess what? You can now put a buyer presentation in that. And the buyer presentation is going to have maybe this buyer guide that we're printing out. Maybe you want to include some of the listing presentation pages that are there. Home warranty information and brochures. You're going to talk to the buyer. Which one do you want to use? Shouldn't it be included in the packet so they already know to start looking at it? Custom page promoting your preferred lender. Eric, reach out to Eric and say, hey, Eric, I'm putting together 10 buyer presentation packages. Can you hand me some flyers and promotional material for you and Axia so that I can include it in this packet? If you have another lender that you adore, that's your call. But I'm just saying, have something in there for that buyer so that the buyer has that resource available at their fingertips. Include your personal resume, personal brochure, or short bio of you and or your team. Hi, Abraham. Why is that important?
Documenting your stories, your successes.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Right? If I'm going to do business with somebody and I have no idea who this person is, I'm reserved, right? I'm going to step back. I don't know who you are yet. I'm not making a decision whether I like you yet or trust you to represent me on $1 million transaction, right? But if you come to me and you say, well, let me give you a little bit of information about myself. I've been in the business 20 years. Here's who I am. Here's what I enjoy doing. I have certifications in this. I have, I'm a member of this, charity club or networking club or whatever. They're going to have an idea of who you are and what you do, right? They're going to understand you more as a person. So that adheres people to us. When you do a personal brochure that talks about you, not just professionally, but you personally, who you are, gives that emotional connection with somebody. I've got samples of marketing brochures in my office that will just blow your mind, that they are so well written, but it makes people go, oh, I want to do business with this person just from the brochure. So think about what you can be doing. If you want to see samples, I'm happy to show them to you. Come see me anytime. A list of sold properties. If you have sold properties that you've done, you should have a list saying, here's my recent solds and include it in your buyer presentation. Why? You want that evidence of success, that you can take a transaction and get it closed. The buyers are thinking about that. A reference list of satisfied clients and customers, your testimonials. That should be in your buyer presentation packet as well. Why? Because again, you want that buyer to be loyal to you, but you have to earn that right? You don't just say, well, be loyal to me because I'm Gina. They're going to say, I don't care who you are. I don't know you, right? So you want to give them, here's who I am. Here's what I've done. Here's my evidence of success. Here's what my clients are saying about me, right? And so if you're new to this business and you have no closed transactions yet, if you have a business that you've had in the past, I'm sure you've worked with other professionals, maybe they'll write a short testimonial about your work ethic, about how you treated them as when they were a customer of yours in another business, whatever it is. You can find somebody and have at least 3 if you can. And then of course, designations and certifications you've earned. And then before running out to show properties, here's the goal: schedule an appointment. If somebody calls you and says, I want to see this house at 1234 Main Street, can you show it to me today? Well, let me see, because all of them are by appointment only. So we need to make sure it's available to show. But I'd like to meet with you beforehand so we can review a few things. Can you meet me at my office? Or would you like me to meet you at your house first? Right? And we're going to talk about the pros and cons of both of that. But when you have a home buying consultation ahead of time to sit down with that person before you're running out showing properties, it's going to reduce some of the buyer anxiety that goes with it. They're thinking about buying a house. Now they're going to go look for it, especially in today's market when it's complete chaos out there. There's some anxiety going on with these buyers. So understand that feeling. Let them know here's what the home purchase process is step by step, and that you're going to be there to guide them through it. Sometimes people need that. And I mean, people have so many decisions and so many things to think about every day. Having somebody says, don't worry about it, I'm going to really take you by the hand and guide you through this whole process. That puts your mind at ease a little bit, especially if now you've earned their trust, you've shown them that you're a professional. Here's what I've done. And don't worry, I'm going to take you through this whole process step by step. It gives them some peace of mind. Educate the buyer about the home finding process and what their role is in working with a sales professional. Uncover the buyer's motivation and their ability to purchase the property. Make sure when you have that conversation, will you be financing any portion of this investment? If the answer is yes, have you started conversations with a lender? If not, I have someone that I work with very closely. I'm happy to put you in touch with, right? If they say, no, I'm paying cash, great. All we're going to need is proof of funds so that when we write the offer, we can attach it right to the offer, all right? Build rapport and a solid working relationship with the buyer, resulting in greater buyer loyalty. So back to where should you meet? Do you meet here at the office or do you meet at the client's house? The advantage of meeting at an office, It's going to help set a good business tone, right? You're a professional, come meet me at my office. We have 2 conference rooms available for your user pleasure. And it helps reduce the strong emotional aspect buying a home presents. So meeting at the office also shows commitment on the buyer's part. They're serious if they're going to come here and talk to you. Provides easy access to forms, copy machines, everything is right here. It's easy to get everything put together and get out there to show the property. The disadvantage is they're out of their comfort zone, and meeting at the office, it can be intimidating, right? If they have small children and they're with them, that can be a big distraction. So, pros and cons of meeting at the office. Now let's go to meeting at the buyer's residence. The advantage, the buyer's in a safe, comfortable environment where they can relax. They can take care of their kids, and you can see how the buyer's living, right? What do they currently have? So you automatically know what their expectations may be of their next property that they're going to buy. One of the things I always like is, what do you have now? What do you like best about what you have now? And my third follow-up question to that is, what would you change about what you have now? And so it helps me identify what their next home is going to look like and what it's going to have, right? What do you like best about what you have now? Well, I love my fireplace in the desert, but I love my fireplace. I have to have it. Super. I know I'm going to look for a home with it's got to have a fireplace. What would you change? Well, I don't have a swimming pool and I need to have a pool. Okay. Now I know that's important to you. So you can really get some information that way. The disadvantage, if you're not prepared, you're not going to have access to necessary forms or computer access to preview the properties, et cetera, et cetera. So you just need to be prepared. Okay, so we're going to set the stage and we're going to present the home finding guide. So we get the appointment, our clients are, let's say they're in the conference room. You're going to pull this up on the big screen in the conference room, because it's much easier than trying to look at a little iPad or laptop, with everybody's heads there. That's what these conference rooms are designed for. We got the big screen TVs and everybody can see what's going on. And you may want to just tell them, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and my aim is to make the home finding process as comfortable and successful for you as possible. As you think about finding a home, you're going to have several important decisions to make. So I've just prepared some information to help you in this process. Does that sound good, right? And I always like to do the head, nod up and down, because when you're asking a question, a yes or no question, and you nod, people's human nature is to what? They nod, because it is. So we're guiding them through the process here. Okay, so let me, I'm going to step aside for a second before we're going to come back to this page. And I'm going to go to now our second PowerPoint, which you're going to have downloaded on your computer or other device. And this is the home finding guide. Okay. Have you guys seen this at all yet?
This is in the VAC, Gina?
It's in the VAC. VAC or the Resource Center? I think it's the Resource Center, actually. Okay. So on page 1, you'll notice right here at the bottom right corner, there is a place for you to put your photograph and your contact information. Okay. Page 2, prepared for. You're going to input your buyer's name. You're going to put your name, company address, and your contact information again. Here's what this document covers: your needs, the home finding process, financing, and who we are. Needs come first. It's a very professional presentation. And your needs come first. Finding and buying the right home is a highly personalized process, as it all begins by identifying your needs. So what I'm going to be needing from you, Mr. Buyer, is your values, interests, priorities, and what you want this move to support. The features you're looking for in a home, how a neighborhood can best match your needs and lifestyle, right? Some people are golfers. They want to live on a golf course, or they play tennis. Does this place have tennis? I love tennis. I can't get enough of it. So we need to hone down what they love to do, how the home finding process will need to be tailored to fit your plans, and then the support you can expect to receive from me. Moving on, here's the home finding process. And here's some questions that's going to help you and help a buyer really figure out what's going to be their best foot forward, because they want it to be, you want it to be a good experience experience for them, because if it's a good experience, you're going to have a client for life, and you'll get those testimonials that will help you in the future. So what is your time frame? Who will be included in the buying decision, right? If there are 2 people or 3 people or 4 people, whatever it is, going to be buying a house, and only one person is there, you probably should get everybody together so you're on the same page with all these questions, right? What if this person says, well, I want to move in 30 days, but the other decision maker says, oh, no, we're not ready for another 6 months, right? So you just want to make sure you have everybody together, at least at the initial consultation, if you can, so that you all start on the same page. I love this question. Thinking of previous home buying experiences, what were the most positive features of that experience, right? So they're going to talk to you, and everybody out there, for the most part, with the exception of maybe a few, they've all bought or sold a home in the past. So they're going to tell you they all have good experiences. And then the next question, were there any unpleasant features in your previous home buying experiences that you hope to avoid this time? The answer is going to be yes. Everybody's got a complaint about something. I mean, like it or hate it, people will say, gosh, on my last transaction, I had this realtor that did 1, 2, 3. I've got agents in this office because of a bad experience they had with their realtor, and they thought, oh my gosh, if that person could do it, I can do it. And that's why they became realtors. So what I like to do when I ask this question, in your experience with past purchases, were there anything that you would have changed? Tell me about it. Oh, I didn't like this. Well, maybe, and number one is always, I never heard from my realtor. They never communicated with me. I had no idea what was going on. And then escrow closed and they were gone. Never heard from them again. That's something you can handle, right? So you can say, okay, well, here's what you can expect of me. But I caution you, only say what you're going to do. Mean what you say what you mean. That's it. Under promise, over deliver. Never over promise and under deliver, because that is a black mark on your reputation every single time. So always, if you say you're going to do something, for crying out loud, do not go to bed that night until you've done it. That is your word. That is your reputation at stake. Okay, what are your expectations of me as your real estate professional? When you ask that question, stop speaking, pull out your pen, and start writing. You want to write down what all their expectations are. So as you're moving forward, guess what? You're going to say, assuming you're going to do all these, here's the expectations they have of me. Here's what I'm going to do. You've got your game plan written for you now. Now you know what they expect and what, at minimum, you have to do. All right. And then what other specific services and support do you expect? So those are some good questions you can ask your buyer. Defining your ideal home. Here's some questions about what you can ask them as far as what their home needs are, right? How many people are going to be living in the house? What would you consider a comfortable commute, right? Now, it's really funny, if you're talking to somebody from LA, an hour commute could be very comfortable, right? Yeah. If you're talking to somebody in the desert, oh my gosh, that's 15 minutes away. I don't want to drive out there. That's 3 miles. Oh my God. But so it's going to depend on who you're talking to, but people are funny. Some don't mind driving. We actually had this client that she drove every day. It was a 45-minute drive one way to work and a 45-minute drive home. And that was her daily commute. And she bought a house 2 miles from work. And during the time she was looking, though, she was asking about this development. And I told her, well, it is 12 miles from the gate. And I knew this because I've driven that many times. It's 12 miles from the gate to your work. And she looked at me and started laughing and said, oh my gosh, that makes no difference to me. I'm driving how many miles now already? She said, really, 12 miles is fine. She ended up 2 miles, but the fact remains you still need to have this conversation with them. What are the most important activities for members of your household, right? What is something you disliked about the house you lived previously? What did you like most about the house? What are your must-have features? So these are all questions as this comes up. You're taking notes, you're writing down, you're honing down. And it's not just, please don't just sit there and listen and nod thinking, yeah, I'm remembering all this. The visual of you writing down what somebody is saying reinforces to them that you are actively listening. And that's critical, absolutely critical. Okay. Finding a house typically includes many of the following elements. I will be your resource and guide every step of the way. So again, we're reaching out and letting them know, I am your person for anything, right? You don't have to call other realtors for this. So your initial consultation, if they need financing, we go to financing first and then back over to finding the home. We're going to prepare an offer. We're going to reach an agreement with the seller. We're going to complete the settlement process. Settlement process is escrow. I am your single source for property information. You're going to discuss what you're going to do here. How to look at homes. We're going to define, what do you consider affordable, right? And just because they can afford it does not mean they want to spend every penny they have. Some people will just make clear, I don't want to be house poor. I want a house, but here's where I want to maintain. And so respect that. I'm only going to select properties that closely meet your unique needs and interests. We're going to schedule time to look, right? If the seller or the real estate professional is at the property when we are there, it would be best for you to limit your conversation with them. This happens all the time, especially as you go into higher price developments. Oh my gosh, literally, I have to tell you, there are agents who will have their bio, their marketing, their personal information right there at the listing, like we all do when we have listings and we're marketing ourselves, right? And they are there at every showing. So now you walk in with your client, they grab their marketing and they will hand it to your buyer. And I've had this one, I'm not going to name any names because we're recording this. I'm not naming any names, but literally, no, this one, and it did happen, and it was at a nice high-end club, and I stopped the agent and said, my client does not need your marketing material, and he kind of pulled it back. He knew what he was doing, and as soon as we walked into the other room, he walked right up behind and gave it to the guy and said, here's my stuff. And I thought, you little skunk, but that's who's out there. So you need to just give them a heads up. Just say, you know what? They're going to try to promote themselves. They may try to promote themselves. They shouldn't. You have an agent. But we have found, and the reason they don't want them talking too much is because sometimes, and this blows up every single time, and I don't think clients realize that, the buyer or seller sometimes get together and they start saying, what about? They'll go out in the backyard, and this has happened, and this is why we say what we say. Oh, I love all these plants. Are these included? And the seller says, oh, sure, whatever you want. Just, just bring me your offer. And they make these deals that are seeming innocent at the time, and then escrow closes. And of course, you as an agent were never told about these plants that are not in the ground. They're actually personal property, right? And so now escrow closes and the plants are gone. And the seller says, oh, I never promised that. I would have never promised that to you. Those are my plants. I love my plants. And the buyer's like, oh no, the only reason I bought this house was because of these plants. Honest, this is a true story. This was an actual lawsuit that happened. So it's really important. You just kind of make sure, and if they are talking, please be there so you're hearing what's being promised back and forth. But try to just give that client a heads up. It's best to limit conversations. If you see anything you really want in a house, let's make a note of it and write it down, and we'll ask for it in the offer. So then if it's not there, now we have something to stand on, right? And the home finding worksheets. I gave you a handout. One of them is a home finding worksheet. It looks like this. And I'm gonna have, it should be in here. I know I put it in here somewhere. When I take a buyer out to look at property, I give them a 3-ring binder, a small 3-ring binder with a plastic cover. And I might put, something about, the itinerary, your home itinerary on the front, or I'll put, a flyer about whatever I'm marketing at the time. But anyway, I will open that up. I have the showing itinerary. And let's say we're showing them 3 developments. I might be showing them, let's go La Quinta, Rancho La Quinta, Citrus, and Mountain View Country Club. Let's say I'm showing those 3 developments. And I might have 1 or 2 homes from each development. I'm going to take the first one. I'm going to print out the MLS detail for the public on each of the houses. I'll print out the additional pictures so they can go back and remember, because sometimes after you've shown several properties, they forget what they've seen, and that happens all the time. So I print everything out, put a worksheet. At the end of the section of the development, I print a one-line CMA with the actives and the solds. And then I highlight what's sold average price per square foot, and I highlight the house I'm showing them. And then next section, same thing, print out the homes I'm showing them, print out the worksheet behind each home, and do that one-line CMA for that development. Next section, same thing. So when I'm meeting them for showing, now I've given them this book, here's the information, here's what we're going to see today. And when they open it, they'll say, because you know what, they don't know if the home is priced right? That's one of the questions they're gonna ask you. If you do not give them that information, what they're gonna say is, all right, let me look at the numbers and we're gonna think about a price that makes sense and I'll give you a call. And you could have prevented that by giving them that information. So by giving them the CMA, you can say, well, let's look at the numbers so you know where we are. In this development, homes are selling for 300, 400 a square foot, whichever it might be. This particular home's priced at $375 a square foot. So you can see of what is sold where it is, it's a pretty good price. Probably may have multiple offers going in, right? But depending on the market, you got to know the area, know what's going on. If that home's been on the market for 6 months, the answer is we need to see what's going on with this home and why it hasn't had an offer yet. But that way it gives them enough information where they can make an educated decision. Do I want to move forward? Because if they have the numbers, they're doing the math as they're going from house to house, and they're thinking, yeah, you know what, that's a good deal. I like this. I want to make an offer on this house because you've given them that information to disclose. So does that make sense? So that book, I got to tell you, I have never handed it to a buyer who hasn't said, oh my God, thank you. This is exactly what I need. And those words that they just say that all the time, which is why I constantly will use it if I'm showing property. Okay, submitting an offer. So once we found the right property, the next is to make the offer. We're going to determine the price. We're going to decide on the financing. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to negotiate. And once we've reached an agreement with the seller, you'll have a firm contract to purchase the home. And then here's some ways to support a trouble-free home purchase. And you're going to cover this with the buyer. And you can see as this is your initial consultation with the buyer. Can you see how if you're doing this step by step, it just brings them that, wouldn't you, if you were sitting with somebody and they were explaining all this, wouldn't you say, oh, I'm going to call Greer because I have a question. You were the person that gave them all the information. You are automatically that person they're going to go to again if they feel that you have more value than the other one down the street, right? So that is why you want to be the go-to person. That is why you want to give them this stuff. This is why you're talking to them about their inspections, including roof, termite, other problems that, potentially the seller may remedy. It can take 15 to 90 days to complete all the steps. And here's what you can expect from me. You're going to cover that page. And then financing your purchase. This covers, of course, the financing. If you're going to be financing any portion, here's what you need. There's various options that you'll be talking to your lender about. You can expect the lender to ask you for standard information regarding your income, expenses, and obligations. That's just standard information. You need to provide that to the lender. Oh, and Mr. Buyer, please, if the lender asks you for something, don't put it off until tomorrow because lenders are on strict time schedules. Please make sure if they ask you for something, go home, get it, and get it to them right away. Oh, and by the way, please don't buy anything when you're in escrow. That car that you're dying to buy, wait till you close and then buy it. That furniture, wait till you close to buy the furniture because everything changes your debt to income ratios. And you don't want that to blow out the purchase of your home. So please put your credit cards away and don't buy anything until we're done here. Okay, unless, they're buying a multi-million-dollar house with cash and then they can do whatever they want to do. Okay. And then the loan application checklist. This is just so they know what to expect. You're setting the expectations. So now when it happens, they're like, oh yeah, Michael told me that I needed to give this. So they're going to go home. They're going to start putting this stuff together before they even talk to the lenders. Now the lenders call them. They're ahead of the game because of you. And that's a great thing. Who are we? We're Berkshire Hathaway. And here we are. Here's what you're going to do. I'm going to work with you at every stage. We're going to have a system of regular communication. I'm going to give you reliable information and solid advice, and that you'll be so pleased with my service that you'll turn to me for advice in the future. And of course, refer me to all your family and friends. And so here's credentials. This is a spot where you can add your photograph. And I'm an active member of, whatever organizations, whatever sales you might have done in the past, bring them in. It all works to your benefit there. About my company, here's some information about Berkshire Hathaway here. If you wanted to add anything, you would add it here. What Berkshire Hathaway services can do, it's our reputation, our commitment to customer service, our advanced technology, our network strength, and our price standards. And so that's the buyer presentation. So after you finish this, now we go back, and the things I want you to remember here, minimize this back, and let's go back to our first one right here, is make sure that you have answers. Have you previewed any other properties, right? You want to know, what have they looked at? It's silly if you don't ask that question, because you might be showing them a house they just saw. And it's really embarrassing when you go pull up their house and they go, oh, we saw this house last week. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, we'll cross that one off our list. Do you have a property to sell? That's going to give you a time frame. And do they need it listed? Let's get it listed. It may be another listing opportunity for you. How long have you been looking? National Association of Realtors say, statistically speaking, from the time a person starts looking until the time they are writing an offer is about 6 months, statistically speaking. So if I ask this question, how long have you been looking? And they say, well, I'm just starting out. Into my database they go. Now I'm going to ask, when would you like to see yourself moved in? That's my first question, because they might have a job transfer where they have to be here in the next 30 days, right? Or, well, when we find a place, then I know we have a little bit more time. But if, how long have you been looking? If they say, well, we've been looking for about 6 months, man, I'm all over it, because I know they're ready. They've been looking, they've weeded out. So now I'm going to go back to, well, what have you seen? What have you liked about what you've seen? What's your favorite development so far? And hey, have you made any other offers? Do they have a buyer representation agreement with another brokerage? We need to know that. If they've written offers, there's a high probability there's a buyer representation contract out there already. So we need to know what the status is. We don't want any legal issues down the road. When would you like to be in your new home? Will you be financing any portion of this transaction? I've already put the verbiage there. So have you already spoken with the lender? Here's what we need to do. If it's a cash buyer, we need proof of funds. So I try to put as much verbiage here for you as possible. Points to remember: be a good listener. That's so many times agents will just talk about how awesome they are and how great and proud of themselves they are, where in reality, you need to stop talking, pull out your pen and paper and listen, and start writing down what's important to that client, because it's all about the client. To close, affirm your gratitude in being able to meet with the buyer and share their plans. Close by indicating your commitment to helping them find a home, and gain their agreement by completing the necessary paperwork in the BRE. So here we are. I've gone through this whole presentation. Buyer, if you would like to move forward, I'm going to ask that you hire me, and we can start going out and seeing properties. And to hire me, here's our agreement. Basically, it outlines what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to be searching for properties. I'm going to take care of it through the whole process. You're going to do some investigations. You need to do your due diligence throughout the transaction. So we're going to have home inspections and termite inspections, and if something comes up in that home inspection, maybe they say there's an issue with the roof. You know what? We're going to discuss having a roof inspection. So there may be more inspections we just don't know about yet. If maybe they found mold, how bad is it? Let's get a company out here to look at it and have it remediated and test the air quality and make sure it's ready for you. So here's all this stuff. And so this is what I'm going to do, Mr. Bauer, to help you. And we can get started when you sign in. And you talk about bringing the commission too. I get paid when we close escrow. Most of the time, I am paid by the listing broker who offers a commission in the MLS. By you agreeing to do this, if I get paid by a listing broker, that is credited toward this, so you don't owe me any money. But what it does allow me to do is also look for off-market properties, for sale by owners, things that may not be in the MLS. If the seller agrees to pay my commission, you owe me nothing. If not, and you love the house, then you're just gonna take care of my commission. Does that make sense to you? Yes? Okay, great. Here's the paperwork, and we get it signed. Okay, so you can see how you can pull it all in. They're more likely to sign a BRE after you've completed your presentation of all the steps we just went through, right? Than if not. If they don't know you, they don't know who you are, you've not given them any testimonials, you're not giving them any information about you or your company, and then you throw this form in front, they're highly likely to say, look, I don't know you and I'm not willing to make that commitment yet. So that's why this becomes important. Sell yourself just like you were going to sell yourself at a listing presentation. So of course you're going to, now they've signed the agreement, you're moving forward, you need to find some properties. We're going to start on the MLS. Off-market properties, where can we find off-market properties?
Colleagues.
Our colleagues, oh my gosh, how about buy side?
Yeah.
When you have a buyer looking for a property, please put their information into buy side. We're not getting, I mean, you are put in their information, but the only thing we see is Maria has a buyer looking for a 3-bedroom, 3-bath home, wants a golf course. Here's what that buyer particularly wants in this price range. So now when we go in to do that BMA, the buyer market analysis on buy side, it's going to show for this property, we have 10 buyers already looking for a home just like this one. So it helps on the listing side. It helps our buyers find properties that haven't even hit the market yet because they're in there. And as soon as we get a listing and it goes in the buy side, that you and your buyer will get notified, hey, this listing just hit the market. So it's a truly wonderful way to work together as a company to get listings before they even hit the market. Because I hear agents all the time, I can't find a house for my buyer. I've got buyers, but I have no houses. Are your buyers in buy side? No. Oh my gosh, get them in the buy side and the houses will find you, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing that. For sale by owners, that's a whole other class, but for sale by owners is a great market. It's a great market and don't be afraid of it. Farm for listings that match your buyer's wants and needs. Well, they want to live in, La Quinta del Oro. They want to live in Del Oro. Super. Farm for, send out postcards, send out a letter saying, I have a real buyer. Here's what they're looking for. If you're thinking about selling, please reach out to me, right? And then of course, social media. You can promote yourself on social media, I've got a buyer looking for a house. If you have a house you want to sell, put it out there. Do whatever you can to find a house for your client. When you find a listing on the MLS, whose phone's ringing? Oh.
And I can hear it, but
I know. I keep looking at it. Is it mine? It's not mine. Not mine. Not this time. Okay. When you find a listing on the MLS, please read the MLS details because sometimes we just get so excited. We find the listing, we put it on our list, and then it'll say, something that your buyer says, I don't want, and it's in there, like leased solar, for example. You want to know these details before you go in. So read about the property. Make sure this is a property for my buyer. When setting up your day of showing, try to limit the number of properties if possible, because when they see too many, they forget, right? They just forget because it's too much to remember. Once you've selected the property to show, schedule your showing appointments. I always like to select the houses that I'm showing, and then I'll pull up the map on the MLS map with the little houses, that'll pop up. And then I take it in a logical order of how I'm going to show it. Otherwise, you could potentially be going from here to here, then back to here, then back to here, and down to here, and your clients are going to go crazy. So yeah, make it logical. If it starts here and you're showing from here to here, do it in an order that makes sense. And so map your listings. Okay. And please, I know this sounds really silly. If at all possible, drive it first before you have your client following you, because inevitably Your GPS will take you to the wrong gate,
Mm.
right? Or it'll tell you to turn down a street that actually this is dirt here and it becomes a street again over there. And you can't turn and you look like a goofball because we have no idea where these homes are. So, and I say that because it's happened to me. I've actually had those buyers following me. I'm making U-turns going, oops, sorry. It's embarrassing. So don't do that. Of course, print the MLS detail. I already talked about this. Include photos and include your one-line CMA in your showing itinerary book. When you're showing the property, point out not just the good. I mean, we're so used to selling. Oh, isn't this a great view? Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this pool fabulous? Right? And of course, what are they thinking? Well, of course you're saying that. Of course you're saying that.
You're gonna love
I,
everything.
I make sure I let my clients know it's not just about this transaction. Look, I'm not gonna. This is. I really appreciate the business, but it's not about this transaction. It's about me doing such a great job for you that you want to refer me to all your friends and family later. Okay, so always point out if you see any issues. You see a big stain on the ceiling, grab your client and say, you know what, this potentially could be an issue. We don't know what it is, but when we have a home inspection, should you choose this house, when we have a home inspection, they'll go up there and they'll find out what's going on. So you'll get a better understanding, right? So point out those issues as well. Have your buyer make notes about each property. On that worksheet that I gave you, have them, between on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 you love the property, where do you rate it, right? Have them keep track because they will forget otherwise. And help your buyer make many decisions as you're showing. Okay, you showed 2 houses now, between house 1 and house 2. Which one do you like better? Well, I like house 1. Great. Let's cross off house 2 because you said house 1 is better. Now we go to house 3. After house 3, and they're making their notes. Between house 3 and house 1, which one do you like better? I still like house 1. Super. Let's cross off house 3 and continue to our next house. And you keep having them make these mini decisions. So now at the end of the day, guess what? They kept going back to house 1. You don't even have to ask them. They're going, wow, I love house 1. Great. You ready to open negotiations? Let's put it down on paper and see if we can come to a mutual agreement on price. Right? That's step 1. And I always use how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So many buyers are so afraid to commit to writing an offer because it's very scary. And they think once they do and they make their initial deposit, their deposit's lost if they back out. That is not it. So I want you to explain the system to them. Look, we're gonna open negotiations, but it means nothing until we come to an agreement on price. Once we come to an agreement on price, your deposit's still not locked in. You're gonna make your initial deposit into escrow within 3 days from acceptance, but it's not locked in because now you get to do your inspections. And I take them through the inspection process. And I'll say, after those 17 days, we've gotten all the seller disclosures, we've gotten the inspection reports, you know about this house and what it means. And I'm going to ask you, are you comfortable with everything? Do you still want to continue to move forward? Yes. Wonderful. Let's go to the next step. You're still not locked in because you have a loan here, right? And we have an appraisal to do, and we have the loan to remove. So now we're going to the next step. So it appraises, wonderful. The loan is finally approved. Fantastic. Buyer, before I remove all contingencies, are you ready to move forward? If you tell me yes, then and only then is your deposit locked in and we can move to close. But if you look at me and say, you know what, I'm just not into this house. Whatever it is, and you want to cancel, you cancel and you'll get your deposit back. So I take them through the process and I try to make it so it's less scary because it can be very intimidating for some buyers, right? So let them know it's a process and each step will take them one step closer. But the fact that they make an offer is not a commitment until it's a commitment. Okay. All right. So write the offer, of course, review the process. You want to make sure you've explained the purchase agreement to the buyer. Sometimes you can print out a sample and give it to them in advance saying, here's a sample purchase agreement. You can read through it so you understand the process as we're going, but I'll go through this with you. Now, if it's a savvy buyer who's buying and selling homes all the time, they probably don't need that because they know, right? You're going to sit and you're going to talk to them about the process. But maybe if you're working with a first-time home buyer or somebody who has not bought a home for a long time, they need to understand what are their contingencies? What are the periods? What are the timetables they're going to have to adhere to? What does it mean if they don't perform, or if the seller doesn't perform? What do we do? And so when you talk to them about all that, it just helps put their anxiety levels down and understand the process. Plus, it makes them trust you and well, they'll believe you when you tell them this is this process. They're going to see it right in the listing or in the purchase agreement, so they know that you know what you're doing. You're going to talk to them about your inspections, escrow, contingency, removal periods, and closing. Of course, you're going to order a property profile. You need to know, how is title held? Is it held in a trust? Is it a probate? Is it a standard sale? Is it husband and wife as joint tenants, but one of the parties has died? What's going on with that? You know, you have to understand, where are we in this and how do we move forward? So are there taxes, special assessments? Is there a lien on the property that we need to know about? And all this you need to know before you write the offer. So the property profile is really important. You want to do an estimated cost sheet for your buyer. Go to Landwood Title's website, landwood.com, and under resources, you can run a buyer estimated cost sheet. And you put in the price, and you put in just a couple questions that it asks you, and it'll give a whole price sheet. So they know, Mr. Buyer, at close of escrow, you're going to have to come in with X dollars about. You're going to get a more itemized statement when escrow opens, but this is an estimate. So you have a ballpark of where we are. And then you want to review, of course, the purchase agreement with the buyer. And just remember, communication is the key. You cannot over communicate. You cannot. So make sure that you're talking to your client daily. Remember your agency duties and responsibilities. In escrow, it is your job to follow up and make sure deadlines are met. The last thing I always want to hear is, well, whose job was it? I didn't have to do that, did I? And my answer is, it's always your job. It's always your responsibility, right, wrong, or different. I want your mindset to be, it is always my responsibility. So if it's maybe picking up the phone and calling the other agent saying, hey, just following up, do you know if the home warranty got ordered, or do you know, whatever it is, just stay on top of your transaction. And of course, stay close with your manager coach. Literally, there's so many scenarios I'm seeing on a daily basis. I kid you not, I am pretty much on the phone with our attorney at least once a day, because there's so much going on out there. So I'm really grateful we have that constant guidance. So we're always doing the right thing for our clients. But it's crazy out there. So I don't ever want you to think, well, I don't want to bug Gina with this because I should know better. That is not the answer. The answer is, let me run this by Gina in case I'm missing something that she might have heard about recently that I don't know about yet. And that happens a lot. So you're never, ever, ever bothering me. So that is how you handle a buyer, through finding them and showing property and what you need to do. Let me quit sharing my screen here and put us back. Hey, you guys are still there. Hello. Okay, here. There we go. So any questions before I end this recording? I'll actually just stop recording now because we're done with the presentation. Let me hit stop recording. Yes.